Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and for once here, I'm not by myself. It's like new phone, who dis? Joined here by one Zach Flash Celadonia. Where you been at, man? You got some type of beverage there. Is that Starbucks? You got Starbucks or Dunkin' or something sitting there?
It's Dunkin', actually. Dunkin'. I went to go get it this morning. I'm a big Dunkin' guy on my off days. Anyway, I typically do the K-Cups, but whenever I have the time, I'll go get Dunkin' for a treat for myself. And the line was so bad, actually, for the drive-thru. I was sitting there like 4 cars back, and I was like, it's a Monday. I'm not used to the rest of the world being off with me on a Monday. And it was past 9 o'clock. So most of the people who are on their way to work should have been there by now.
Yeah, get out the way.
And I wasn't really too peeved about it, because after I said that, I was just sitting there listening to a podcast and eventually got my drink. And when I'm behind the last dude in front of me in line, I noticed he went to hand the window guy his card, and the guy just handed it right back to him. And I was like, did he just get his stuff for free in front of me? And I got up to my turn, and the guy was like, sorry for the wait, man. Your stuff's all taken care of. And I was like, sweet.
Yeah, there you go. I have a Dunkin' gift card that I haven't had an opportunity to use just yet. So I've been sitting here with the K-Cup stuff. Got my mug. Always good.
Just stick it in your car, so that way you always have it on. There's a couple, you can be out on the road trip or something, taking a long drive, and that's a lot of times when you can pull over for some coffee, and it's good just to have it in your car.
Yeah, well, I've got the Dunkin' gift card and haven't used it. I'm a Panera guy. Panera's been giving me the free coffee. I know Brian. See, we could have this talk because Brian, he's a loser. He doesn't drink coffee. So, hey, Brian's finally not on the show. So, he was supposed to be on late last week. Somebody was like, this guy's just rambling about whatever, about like third string or fourth string or guys that aren't going to make the team. Yeah, I was rambling about it. Sorry.
Does that guy know what time of year it is? There's nothing to talk about.
There isn't. We're talking about coffee right now. And I'll get Panera. Now, the other day, Panera was just a little bit, I don't know, it tasted burnt to me, but I got the free, whatever, you just go in, you get you check out, but it's free, right? And you get the coffee. And this time they didn't have the cups behind the kiosks. And not every Panera has the kiosk where you just order on the kiosk. Sometimes I have to I'll order it mobile because I don't want to have to wait in line just to get my coffee cup handed to me. Well, now this other place days. Yeah, those few bad apples that spoil the whole bunch. So apparently people were just taking cups and thinking it was just free for everybody. It's like, no, I have the club. You pay for it. I haven't. I get it for free with my credit card. It's one of the perks. But it's paid for by someone. I'm not just sitting over here thieving Panera coffee cups and just taking everything. So we both are in the kind of free coffee category here, which is kind of cool. And then Brian just doesn't drink coffee at all because what's up with that? So.
I can't understand that. I probably never should have gotten into it, but I had no chance. As soon as I started working an actual job, I needed it to keep me going. I'll have energy drinks sometimes too, but those are harsher on my heart. So I try to stick with coffee.
Yeah, the energy drink thing, I think sometimes could dehydrate you and stuff like that. There's a lot of cases of people that are like, oh man, that really messed up my world and stuff like that. So speaking of messing up our world, we were probably both getting coffees over the weekend. I started texting you. I was like, I saw there was this hot take that was out there, and it's the basis of this whole show because it's June and we don't have a whole lot to talk about. And I'm like, does Kenny Pickett get little or no respect from the media? And we're kind of just bouncing around. There's no real topics bar for this, as we'll go off into several tangents of just the lunacy of people's opinions. It's not even just all media. It's just there's some folks that are out there in the Twitterverse. He just doesn't, like Rodney Dangerfield, doesn't get any respect. You know what I mean? The guy doesn't. I feel he should get some more, but there's also a fine line of how much respect do you give to a guy that wasn't a full year starter last year, and that kind of factors into the whole thing. But before we get to that, this handsome young man, he's got all kind of stuff on Instagram, and people like to lift that and repost it and whatnot. But found some of them, so I'm just as guilty. But got married over the weekend. They're saying this is the first ring of many. alluding to like Super Bowls and stuff like that. So
I've seen those jokes. Those are great.
Yeah.
They're not jokes. They're serious statements.
Serious statements. It was, what was this? Adam Crowley got to be like the jerk that he is at times. And he goes, he's on Twitter. The beloved Pittsburgh Maulers are playing for the USFL championship. When will the Steelers next win a playoff game? It's like, come on, dude. Like, you got to throw it in there. But then, like, Elite set up to revive a well-trodden topic from Brian Batko. And somewhere in here, there's another comment where Crowley, actually, he was replying to his own thing. It was either this or Kenny Pickett got a ring this weekend. When does he get another one? So, yeah, okay. Just stoke the flames there. It's like, the Pittsburgh Maulers don't even play in Pittsburgh. Let's start with that. And that team,
it makes it harder to support the team.
Yeah, they were really bad. At least they changed from like the blue and orange over to black and gold. Like their jerseys are kind of looking like those Gotham Rogues, like the Dark Knight kind of thing going on there. But hey, you might get me to tune in. I tried to go to a USFL game in Canton, and every time I tried to get up there this season, it was just one day it was like 90 some degrees, and I was like, I'm not sitting by myself where all I have is the seats radiating heat and cooking me over here like a rotisserie chicken. And then another day was like storms, and it ended up, both of those forecasts, actually, they're not always accurate. Those were set in stone there. So it was like, nope, didn't make it up there.
Yeah, neither situation seems worth it for a USFL game.
No, not for USFL. Now, if this was the Steelers, of course, I was out there. It was 9 degrees at kickoff on Christmas Eve. I was out there. You know what I mean? So there are very few things that I often joke when it comes to my love for the Steelers, very few things that could fill in or kind of place that, but the Steelers are like my mistress. And it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm like cheating on things in my life with the Steelers, and that would be accurate. I don't want to have to hide that though. But it's like, maybe that's not entirely accurate. I don't want to hide my love for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, but Pittsburgh Maulers there's no love for the Pittsburgh Maulers here. They may not even be Pittsburgh Maulers come next year. They might be like, I don't know, whatever, like Akron Rubber Tires or something. They do have the Rubber Ducks. They do have the Rubber Ducks for
maybe if we got an XFL team, I could get more into it. But the USFL is just too lower level for me right now. And not to sound like I'm on my high horse, but I just can't get into it. I've been trying to watch every now and then. I'll throw it on. They're on at really weird times, but every time I happen to throw one on, I lose interest like within 10 minutes.
I do too. It's so bad. The Pittsburgh team was doing good. I know the last time I did catch a little bit of it was running the football, so didn't want to get too far off track. Kenny Pickett, just one more Kenny Pickett, engagement, wedding, whatever photo. Already celebrating. That's a pretty hot one there. Neon sign says the Picketts, and they're smoking cigars. His lap.
Hair looked great throughout the whole thing. There was a real nice back shot of them at the altar. And I was just like mesmerized by Kenny's hair in the back. It was perfectly coiffed, nicely layered, good volume. So I'm pretty sure things went well based off of that start.
There's nothing but respect here, but for Kenny's hair.
Oh, yeah, that's a big part of his game. And I noticed they had a real nice ice sculpture, and it was a big Steelers logo. So I like seeing that at the end of the day, he was still thinking Steelers, even on his wedding day.
Yeah, actually, I've got that. I've got the photo right here. Here's the ice sculpture. Yeah,
no
he's thinking
days
football.
Off.
Yeah, no days off. Can't even get married, dude. Sorry. What are you doing? I'm digging the seafood there, like especially the shrimp. I could do like some shrimp cocktail. That sounds really good.
I'm not a seafood guy, but I love the sculpture.
Oh no, I had surf and turf over the weekend. Real fine dining with the lady. Went to a place. I had one of the main lobster tail. Like, what's the market price on that? And I was like, you know what? Do it. I'm gonna do it.
Hey, I'll take the turf. Yeah. I'll take the turf. It's the surf that gives me a problem.
Not the surf, not the turf. And we should also, since we're on Kenny Pickett right now in news, if you remember, someone stole his SUV. I found this odd. His name was Christopher Carter. Maybe not the wide receiver, formerly Ohio State, Minnesota Vikings, et cetera. Also not the guy who covers the Steelers. Is he on Locked On? Is that what Chris is running right now?
Yeah, he's a host of Locked On Steelers.
Locked On. So don't get your Chris Carters confused, because remember when the other Chris Carter was on Good Morning Football and he had something who was he ragging on? Somebody with the Steelers. Was it Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Ben. And the other Chris Carter on Locked On, and I know Chris was with DK. I'm not sure if he's still with DK on sports or not.
I sound like I have some kind of problem. I remember that right off the top of my head. I was like, oh, it was bad. I remember because that was a really annoying morning for me. It was a Monday. I was off, so I was able to watch Good Morning Football, and he was just ranting on and on about Ben's attitude. And I was like, dude, this is like Ben's last year in the league. We all know he's not the best guy, like off the field, clearly, and he's a little rough around the edges. But yeah, Chris was digging into like his character and how like teammates don't like play for him. It was a mess, and pretty sure he hasn't been on since because like the uproar from Steeler fans afterwards, we were all like, why is this guy on the show? Like nobody cares about Chris Carter's opinion. And I mean, he got axed from ESPN, so right.
Yeah. He seems to be. You know what? I got a fist bump from him though at the Hall of Fame. He was there. All the gold jackets that get invited back. He was there when Bettis went through. So I was like, hey, I got a fist bump from Chris Carter. Not the other Chris Carter. He had to say that not the same guy. Please, like, stop, tagging me or whatever in this stuff. So, anyways, let's get on to some other stuff. This is all Kenny Pickett related, by the way. We were talking about like over the weekend. And you were like, man, this just got me like fired up first thing in the morning. Like I went out, like I don't usually go out and like work out first thing, like on the weekends. The weekends are my weekends. You know what I mean? But this got me, I had to go bang some iron, clank some iron, bang some weights out, like get in a little bit of a walk, jog, whatever. And it was all because of, it's your fault. Cause I probably wouldn't have seen this. I don't even know who this guy is. He's got a check mark, but anybody could buy those these days. Let's see. Some type of fantasy football network. Sorry, Nick. We're going to roast you a little bit, and it'll probably come back to us. But you kind of deserve this in somewhat of a way because I don't buy this. Now, this is the poll's over with now, and of course, Steeler Nation jumped on the side of Kenny Pickett. But they're not even like, these aren't even alphabetical order. It was who is the better quarterback prospect coming out of college: Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, or Kenny Pickett. And you immediately were like, isn't it kind of obvious, like based on who got drafted, who ended up being the better college prospect? And I mean, this guy was like getting pretty feisty in his comments, going back and forth and
Of course he was.
I don't necessarily agree. Here's one that, like he said, I don't necessarily agree that draft capital means a prospect is better with the NFL's track record in the draft. Can we remind people where Sam Howell was drafted? By which team and what round? Round 5. Yes. And what team was that? That was the Washington,
artist formerly known as the football team, the Commanders.
Football team, Redskins, Commanders. They might even not have that name this season. And
I love how he tries to make himself sound so smart, like citing the NFL's history in the draft. Every pro sports league has draft misses and draft hits. They're not doing anything there, being like, given the NFL's history with the draft.
Yeah. And somebody's like, well, the guy who went in the first round, and it
comes down to what you think a prospect is, and like that. It's one thing I can almost come over and be like, okay, I understand if you're trying to say how can still be better. Like that's something I won't like come down on a guy for. I won't like be too harsh about in the replies. But to act like, or the question that was stated was, who was the better college prospect? Why would the NFL just if Sam Howell's the best one, why would they just let him fall to the 5th round?
Yeah.
If he was viewed as like the best prospect. The two other options besides Pickett he gave were Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell. Neither dude even went in the 2nd round. So it's just a really weirdly phrased question. I almost don't understand it. And I'm sorry to start your day off on a bad foot that day, but they say, it's never good to wake up in a bad mood, but I don't think those people realize how good it feels to make another human being feel stupid. Because your day starts off on a good foot. As soon as you get that early win, it's good to see one go through the field goal. It's good to see one going in the hoop. And in the morning, when I'm served up something that easy, and like, who was the real better college prospect going into the NFL? It's like, dude, the one who got picked in the 1st round.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, and I told you too. I think I tweeted back at this. There was also a guy that wasn't even put in on this poll. And that was Malik Willis. So, like, Malik Willis got drafted ahead of Sam Howell, and there were people who legitimately thought, you and I included, that the Steelers could have took him at 20, thought that Kenny Pickett might have been. There were people that even thought in the mock draft universe out there, social media and whatnot, that Malik Willis could have went, like, top 6 or whatever. There were people that were actually picking him to go ahead of Pickett. And the guy's not even on the poll, number one. And it was just like, it just felt like a little disrespectful because it was like, I'm going to put Sam Howell as the first name on here because I feel that Sam Howell is the better prospect coming out of college. Well, they both play in the ACC. And Kenny had 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 4,319 yards on nearly 500 passing attempts his senior year at Pitt, 13 games. Sam Howell plays 12 games, and of course, we have the bowl or championship games are included in that for Kenny's too. So Kenny had one extra game, but he throws 347 passes, 3,056 yards, and he had 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He actually regressed in the same conference at the same time that Kenny Pickett is playing. So this is why Sam Howell, like the Sam Howell stock, I saw this like in the comments too. Like people were talking about, well, if he came out, if it was a year earlier or a year sooner, there was a lot to do too last year where the Steelers got really lucky. They didn't have to make like the stupid moves that like the Carolina Panthers had to do to get up and get Bryce Young or anything like this, because the teams already at least had like a guy like in place. Like even like the Jets had Zach Wilson. They had already invested in a guy. Or another team, or like the Panthers, like just went and they foregone that whole thing, and then they went after Baker Mayfield, of course. So a lot of that, like they're talking about draft pedigree or whatnot. Well, it's really because the other teams didn't have a need at the quarterback position.
I remember also their rosters were really, really bad. Like the teams that were in question in front of us, because this was an argument I got into numerous times with. Clearly, I wanted the Steelers to take a quarterback last year. I was very vocal on that side of the fence that I wanted them to take a quarterback in the first round, i.e. Malik or Kenny. Ritter was my third choice. And a lot of people were like, dude, they're not going to get anybody at 20 because you got the Seahawks in front of them. You got the Panthers in front of them. The Falcons were another one that kept getting brought up. And I was like, yeah, problem with all those teams is their whole roster sucks. Like there's like 2 or 3 players on each team from those 3 teams I just listed that are like, okay, yeah, they're good. But they needed to go best player available, and given the state of the quarterback class last year, best player available in the top 10 wasn't one of the quarterbacks for them. When your teams are that bad, you want to invest in the trenches, maybe a really good cornerback, or like that's usually the building blocks to get up. But a team like the Steelers, where the roster wasn't as bad, we have more pieces in place that are ready to win now. Quarterback always made sense. But anytime I tried to explain that to somebody, they looked at me like I had 6 heads, and they were like, yeah, but they need a quarterback. And I'm like, but their team sucks, man. That if the Falcons took Kenny last year, he would have gotten like killed, and he wouldn't have had as much success. Same thing if the Seahawks would have taken Kenny, he wouldn't have played all year because they had Geno Smith, who was playing just fine. So it really was right place, right time for them to draft Kenny Pickett. And Malik Willis being regarded as the guy that you're, by a lot of people, myself included, it almost makes the argument that that guy with the poll tried to make with his intelligent reply being like, oh, the NFL's track record. Well, the NFL clearly knew that Malik Willis wasn't the right guy because Kenny was the best so far, and it looked like it's going to be that way for that class, and he had the most success, aside from Brock Purdy, who, I mean, is kind of like a huge asterisk in the situation right now. So I think it's just this time of year when there isn't really anything to talk about or get into arguments with, you have these old arguments kind of resurface. And the argument of like, who's actually the better quarterback coming out of college? It's like this was an argument that should have been had last year. And this guy's just like digging it back up again because there's nothing else to talk about. My guy, Sam Howell played 1 game last year. Okay, 1 game. And people are like, is he actually better than Kenny Pickett? Let's pump the brakes. Let's realize that what Kenny Pickett showed last year was more than Sam Howell showed. It was better than Sam Howell showed. And obviously Ritter as well. So it's just a really strange question, kind of out of left field, that we gave the guy what he wanted, engagement. But at the end of the day, I'd rather not get the engagement and not look stupid than get engagement and have like all of Twitter just dunk on me in the replies.
Yeah, delete this tweet, please. Just to put this into perspective too, Washington had, Sam Howell was the man. He had to beat out Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. And he hasn't even beat out Jacoby Brissett yet. They haven't named a starter yet. He's taken 1 reps, but he hasn't even won the job yet there. Yeah, I know. And there's like some talk about like, well, he could, like, in theory, blah, blah, blah. They had him play. What was the 1 game he did play in?
We all could do something. I could probably get a 6-pack in like 4 months if I really committed myself to it. Not happening, though.
Yeah. Very final game, week 18, Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, 11-19. I mean, I'm not gonna say a whole lot about this. I'm not gonna stats chase this, but touchdown and an interception, and it's like he took 3 sacks. I mean, the team's bad. Like you
Cowboys
don't want
defense sucked last year too.
yeah, and you don't want to ruin this kid. For the Steelers are in a much different position, and they still didn't want to do that. They started Mitch Trubisky at first, and I think that gives some of the like negative light onto Kenny Pickett, but like I feel Kenny Pickett's head and shoulders above everybody else in this class. I don't care what people say about like Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis. You're already seeing it with Malik Willis. Like Vrabel wouldn't even put in he put in Josh Dobbs over Malik Willis. Like it's like, yeah. I mean, not to say guy couldn't be ready like this year, next year. Maybe he develops. They get him. He gets his practice reps and whatnot, and then they kind of put him in instead of rushing him in. That might have been like a more strategic move as to, well, Josh at least has a little bit of experience and he's a smart dude and he won't make these mistakes. Like he's not as raw, maybe. I mean, that's still kind of a stretch since it was his first start. But yeah, it's like, what are you looking at? What are you looking at?
If that had been Kenny in that situation, the NFL world and haters everywhere would have looked at him as a bust right then and there. So the fact that it happened to Malik Willis, it's easy for me to put myself on, like look through those eyes and be like, if it were Kenny in that situation and Tomlin went out and got Josh Dobbs back in town, or like some other quarterback off another practice squad and started him instead of Kenny, that would be a red flag, a huge one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely red flag. And just and to go back to the draft real quick, the whole list, like you were saying, Jacksonville, they already had Trevor Lawrence. They take Trayvon Walker. Detroit was a thought. Aiden Hutchinson. That's a no-brainer. You're going to take a dude that, I mean, he is a monster last year, and he's kind of like a local hometown. Like that's a fit and a half. Derek Stingley went corner with the Texans. Now Texans could have done something. They decided to do nothing since getting rid of Deshaun Watson. Now, obviously, in a whole different position there this year, and the same with the Jets. They went with Sauce Gardner. The Giants, they were still trying to do it with Daniel Jones, and that worked out. They went with Kayvon Thibodeau. Carolina went with the tackle Ekwonu. Evan Neal, another offensive lineman, tackle, right? Evan Neal's tackle. They have him listed as offensive line to the Giants. So the Giants had those 2 picks there. Drake London to the Falcons. That's where the head scratchers, like, should they have taken like Kenny? But that team has so many other issues other than wide receiver, but it'll be interesting.
And London,
to see.
I mean, London had a good showing last year. He had better stats than Pickens, so like he started to get it with the end of the year for sure. I think London can be good, but that's my exact point. Was the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Panthers, and the Texans as well? They could have gone any direction because all those rosters were dog shit last year. They've made improvements since then. We're a whole year. I know the Texans are exciting now, kind of, and there's differences now with those teams. But given the state of their rosters last year, I wasn't like just thinking, okay, we're going to get screwed out of a quarterback at 20, because these teams need one too. They had to go other areas.
Yeah, and there's teams like a lot of these teams have more than one pick, so you're always worried were the Saints going to jump in here and maybe that's where I thought. I was like, maybe the Saints, maybe
Saints were a big one. They were taking them a lot in the mock simulators. I remember that last year.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so the Bears had traded their pick. They didn't have, I don't think they had a first round pick at all. The Broncos also with the Russell Wilson trade, so they didn't have a pick at all. Not that they would have went, because Russell Wilson was supposed to be that dude for them, even if he wasn't. You have the Jets already, like I said, had Zach Wilson. I mean, the Saints are still trying to figure it out. I guess I don't really know what's going on with them, to be honest. So we'll see what Derek Carr's like for them now. They went the path the Steelers could have went. They went away from a quarterback, and now they might be paying for that. You know what I mean? Like what? They had Andy Dalton throwing the ball for them last year, so that was it gets a little rough. I mean, maybe they were going to count on Jameis Winston a little bit. I don't know. I really don't know what they all had in their cards. Detroit went and took the gamble on Jameson Williams. We'll see how that turns out. The Eagles didn't need anybody. That pick got bounced around. Obviously, the Ravens didn't need anybody, and then you have like the Commanders decide to go with Jahan Dotson instead of Kenny Pickett. They had Carson Wentz. Maybe we can get something else out of Carson Wentz. I think that experiment's finally done with in the NFL, maybe, hopefully. So, and then you keep going, like Treylon Burks, Trevor Penning, and then Pickett finally goes, and you don't have a quarterback go for quite some time because it's just different team needs. the teams that may have needed a quarterback, they may have foregone it. Like you said, they had a lot of holes, and they're comparing it, and it's like, oh, okay, Aiden Hutchinson over Kenny Pickett. Like, the Steelers might have made that same move. I don't know. Like, that's tough to say. Maybe not, but it's just based on their position. But like Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner, like, I don't know if they're using like a 4th overall pick on Kenny Pickett, and they didn't have to move up for him. And I think that's a lot of where some of the hate comes from with Kenny Pickett. But I get tired of seeing people around, like, they have fandom, people that are like around with other teams, and they're always like talking smack. And there's one here. It's called, let me see, this account was pretty funny. They'll bring up like different ones, and it's like miles off the edge. And it's like, no, you're miles off the reservation, but I don't think that fits into the handle. You know, obviously a Browns fan, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Then he leaves like this big space gap, Kenny Pickett. And then the Steeler, like, he makes it like a capital L. Like, come on, dude. Like, grow up. That's something I would probably do, though. But Browns don't have an L in their name. But they have a W, but they still can't find it.
I can't tell if this guy's 12 or 52.
Yeah, he could be anywhere in between, like, right? So the Steeler fans will look you straight in the eye and tell you that this is the answer to go along with his 7 TDs, the 9 interceptions. He's got the whole crying face thing going, and like he doubles down like on this too. He goes, it would be a mistake to sleep on Mike Tomlin, not Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is awful, and he was drafted 2 to 3 rounds ahead of where he should have been. And he's basing this off of statistics, right? And of course everyone's going to bring that up because early Kenny filling in, like, he wasn't the one all through camp. He wasn't the one to start the season. And you got a guy that you traded like your entire franchise away for. Maybe if they ever have another NFL expansion team, like Deshaun Watson will also get the rights to that, like David Beckham did in the MLS. So Deshaun Watson last year, he was sub 60% completion percentage, right? 58.2, 1,102 yards, 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Like, what did your dude do? Like, what did this guy do? You gave him how many 3 first-round picks for him, and then you guaranteed his whole contract, and you just keep kicking that money over. It's gonna be like $67 million cap hit like next year. Just keep kicking it down the road, and then you've got Kenny, and Kenny got for the season obviously more yards. So we're comparing how many games was Kenny in? 13, and Watson was in 6. Okay, but Kenny doubled up. 2,404 yards, 7 touchdowns, the 9 interceptions. But if you take Kenny Pickett from the bye week, and Kenny Pickett has, okay, it's sub 60%, but 1,442. So this is 8 games, a little more comparable. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, took 15 sacks or whatever. He also had a rushing TD in there. He didn't have any fumbles lost. He wasn't like a major like liability to this team, whereas Watson's supposed to come in. He's supposed to be like all pro level. He's supposed to be like that guy, and they blew everything. They blew everything for him. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. So, what am I going to say though? Like, even rushing wise, 36 for 175 and a touchdown for Deshaun Watson. And Kenny Pickett had 36 for 139 and a touchdown. So you got a mobile quarterback. Like, there's like, I'm not going to say they're the same dude, but look at what you got for what you paid for it. And now you're trying to rag on Kenny. And that's where I think there isn't like a lot of respect. Too many people, as you say, are just chasing those numbers and always talking about those numbers, as opposed to, you know, look at some film. Look at the accuracy. Look at how this team grew, and they're right back in the thick of things. Even a come from behind victory or 2 game-winning drives to finish out this season. And now he's got the full off season. He doesn't have to worry about the combine. The only thing that was on his radar in June when nothing's going on is his wedding with his Steelers ice sculpture. Football's still on his brain. He's working with Allen Robinson. They're doing some drills and stuff. You see those videos that are out there. There was another
Robinson
video.
went with him to New Jersey to work out.
Yeah, there was another video with some guy, and he was throwing it. Kenny was throwing the ball in the basketball hoop from midcourt, football that is. He put like an orange cone on top of his head, and he like knocked it off. I'm gonna have to find it and see where that is. But man, I tell you, like, some people are just like really like stats whoring it, chasing like stuff just to try and come up with some sort of narrative against Kenny Pickett just to like, I don't know, right fight that it's not the right. I think what it really boils down to, dude, is that they're afraid that the Steelers got this right and now they're going to be in deep shit.
Definitely. Well, first of all, what's this guy's name? Miles Off the Edge.
Yeah, miles off the reservation, miles off the lake, whatever.
Anybody who uses an NFL player in their Twitter handle is so cool. Like the coolest people on Twitter use NFL players as their pictures and their names, and always send shivers through my spine whenever I see them with a take. But I will try to combat this Titan and say, stats are so funny when looking at a rookie quarterback because I've listed the names countless times of rookie quarterbacks who've struggled as well and gone on to have great careers, or at least began to have exciting careers like Trevor Lawrence. And I can't remember a first-round rookie quarterback who had success and got his team to a winning record, almost a playoff spot, where the sole arguing point from people who don't like him or don't want to believe in him are the stats. I don't remember it being brought up as frequently with other first-round quarterbacks who showed they had something, and people are like, yeah, but look at the stats. And as far as that's concerned, Kenny did what he needed to do. He did what he was asked to do. He didn't have the best stats, but his stats he got were in the fourth quarter, third quarter, crucial times in a game where he needed to deliver a ball, clutch moments, not easy throws, and it's not hard to see that when you throw on the tape. I think to argue that, well, he had worse stats than Deshaun Watson is laughable because Deshaun Watson's going into year 6, 7, whatever. It was Kenny Pickett's first year. So it really isn't a fair comparison. It's apples to oranges by the definition.
Yeah, and I was, I'm trying to find this video. Now, of course, I can't find the clip that I was looking for. He was working out with Allen Robinson.
I do think the clips are great. I'll eat that shit up all the time. And you can say that that's naive of me, and it may be because I don't go out of my way to seek out Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones or Deshaun Watson working out on their own, but I feel like the rate at which I see the videos of Kenny with his quarterback coach and the work that he puts in and all the rumors and the stories you hear about how dedicated he is, it's almost like I'd be surprised if he didn't have a drastic improvement going into year 2. And I was already excited off of year 1, but I think the sky's the limit based off of his work ethic.
Yeah, and here we go. I found one. This is a quarterback's coach, Tony Riccioppi, I think is how you say Tony's name.
Yeah, he was at his wedding, I think.
Yeah, who do you trim off that list, right? And let's see. That I can't even steal that. I think that was another one someone else come up with. I saw that. So there we go. Like just I mean,
1, 2, 3, boom.
Yeah, I know. Just it's a lot of people, it's in shorts, it's blah, 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 blah. It's like, I was talking about I'm trying to make my plans to go to training camp this year, and I don't know that I'll be out there with them without the pads, like for that first week. It's like, because they don't have like the same, like, who am I going to look at? Broderick Jones, like, he's not going to push anybody around. Keanu Benton's not going to be able to push anybody around. The most you're going to be able to look at maybe as far as the new guys, but you're probably going to be able to see some things with Kenny and some of the first team players that are out there. So it's like, it's still eating me. Like, I'm like, see, I got some stuff going on. I got like personal life. I got a bachelor party I got to go to within this mix. So, Joe's got a budget here. I can't just blow it all on the mistress. I got to take care of my buddy and be there for him. But yeah, I was trying to look, there's always like these hot takes though. It's like just a whole lot of,
it's because he's stuff. He doesn't have I think he has swag, but he doesn't go out of his way to put himself in the spotlight. Whenever he's in the spotlight, he shines. But I don't think he looks for that or seeks that out. I'm sure people will comment, oh, what about when he went on stage with Luke Bryan or whatever? It's like, yeah, would you pass that up? I don't think he requested Luke Bryan to call him up there. It's kind of a common thing you're seeing. Daniel Jones just did it. Mahomes has done it. If you're at a country concert in a city that has an NFL team and the quarterback is any good, he might get called up on stage.
Yeah,
I don't think Kenny embraces it or like really looks for it. He just wants to win football games and embrace being a Steeler and embrace the city. And we can see that as fans and appreciate it. But fans of other teams, they want the guy to be like Joe Burrow and like wear these crazy outfits and like have these quotes like, oh, as long as I'm here, the window to win a Super Bowl is open. Like Kenny doesn't put himself in those situations. And I'm a fan of guys showing their personality. And I think Kenny does that in his own way, but it's also why he doesn't get as much of the love as other guys do who kind of put themselves in the headlines. And I think it's gotten better because certain media members who I have respect for, because I think they see through those kinds of things. Brian Baldinger and Kyle Brandt in particular. Brian Baldinger is a former player, works for NFL Network, and does film breakdowns on Twitter frequently. And Kyle Brandt's obviously a host of Good Morning Football. They both have gone out of their way numerous times since Kenny took the reins to say, this kid has it. This kid is a good quarterback, and they're excited for what he brings for all of the things that I've already mentioned. So those two are they're off my shit list. But it feels like, every other day you're reading something, whether it's on Twitter or on TV, where they're either ranking quarterbacks or talking about young ones. People are excited. Second-year jumps, I never hear Kenny mentioned as like, who are you excited about in year two? No one ever takes the obvious. How about the one guy who went in the first round last year that plays quarterback, the most important spot in football, and ended the season on a really good note and almost put the Steelers in the playoffs? I'm shocked that nobody ever was like, I'm excited for Kenny Pickett year two. And this morning, credit again to GMFB, Good Morning Football, I did happen to catch Sean O'Hara say he picked two. He picked George Pickens and Kenny Pickett as a package deal. So shout out to him. But the media people that control like the graphics only showed George Pickens. And they had his name that flashed up. I was like, he said Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. Put Kenny's name up there. And they failed to do that. So there is a bit of hesitancy, I think, from the mainstream media to give Kenny his flowers. But what's funny about that is I think the last person who cares about that is Kenny.
Yeah, he's cool, man. I hate the word. Where did this cliche ever come from? Cool as a cucumber. I mean,
it's just the alliteration, I think, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you grab a cucumber, it better be in like some type of refrigerated state. I don't think anybody eats warm cucumbers.
No. Usually those are on burgers, and they're called pickles.
Yeah, and those like I do cucumbers. I won't do pickles. Like,
so we're reversed.
True story here.
We're the opposite.
Here. Like, and it was, I did the mobile app thing, and I picked up my McDonald's yesterday. I needed something quick and cheap and just, comfort food. I won't lie. And I got a McDouble, and there was a pickle on it, and it just destroyed like the whole entire experience for me. It was like, blah. Like, I don't know if
yeah, dude, you're one of those people, man. You want to give me something about seafood? You can't have a pickle on your burger.
The pickle juice was just it was there, and like I had that crisp hard bite into the pickle that I was not expecting to be there, and it's just
those are the best bites.
No, those aren't the best bites. It's I know you're not a Seinfeld guy probably, but Newman that was on that show, he's like, vile weed, he was trying to convince people he liked broccoli or cauliflower or whatever it was, I forget. He's like,
you sound like my buddy Ricky, man. He'll throw away a Chick-fil-A sandwich straight from the drive-thru if they put pickles on. It's like, it's the pickle taste. It's all over the sandwich.
No. I took it off. I would have preferred to put a little more ketchup on there to kind of like, mellow
Mask
it out.
It.
Yeah, and I'll give McDonald's a pass too. They don't use Heinz ketchup. They got their own ketchup. Their own ketchup's okay. It's like one of the only times where I'll be like, okay, like, guys, otherwise I'll take that shit home and I'll put like Heinz ketchup on it instead. Like, there is no Hunts. There's no catsup in this house. That does not happen in this household.
Yeah, I feel like every fast food place I go gives me Heinz, I think.
Yeah, not McDonald's. It's like they got their own little branded wrappers or whatever. It could be white labeled. I don't think it is though. I think they make all their own, like, everything. Back in the day, I think they used to. It'll be interesting. There'll be somebody that pops up. I mean, McDonald's is huge. Somebody had to work there and has a story for us. That'd be kind of cool. I was looking up your Baldy quote and I found it, and it says, let me see here. My how things, well, it's from 93.7 The Fan because they had them on. This was back in about like, this was pre-NFL draft, about a week before the draft, I think. And Brian Baldinger says, honestly, I don't think there's anybody as good as Kenny Pickett in this draft. That's where I'm at with these quarterbacks. I'm not in love with this group. So Mr. Poll guy would not have liked that. Nick would not have cared for that because Sam Howell was the top. I get where he's coming from. Like, Sam Howell was highly regarded, like, as he plays, he starts the 1 year and it's like, this is the guy to look for. And then his second year, it's like, look for this guy. He's going to be a top pick in the NFL draft. You know what I mean? And then he kind of like regressed and Kenny sold that thunder. And like, some guys just really have to like double down on that and be like, hey, everybody's wrong about this guy. Maybe they are. I mean, look, Sam Howell hasn't really played. Kenny Pickett's still got to have a full season too. But then you see some things that float around like this. And this is put some respect on the name. This is a fantasy account, player profiler, Roto Underworld, almost like Underground. So Kenny Pickett pros, check next to underrated runner, which we already mentioned, comparing him to Watson. 75.6% catchable deep ball. That's first overall. Also first with 73.8% catchable under pressure, and second with 83% catchable pass. The only cons that they had for him was, where's gloves? So
that's a fair point. That's a fair point. It's taken a little bit for me to get used to the gloves. I used to not love the 2 glove thing, but then I remember there's been a lot of games where I think because he didn't do it every game, he didn't get a lot of credit for this, but Ben used to wear 2 gloves quite often. And like nobody really said anything about it, but there were a bunch of games where he'd be wearing, and they look like old offensive linemen beat up gloves. They didn't look sticky or anything, so I don't know why he was wearing them, maybe for the weather, but Ben used to do it, so it's grown on me. And another similarity to Ben is I actually, as much as I love Kenny, I didn't know that he led the league in catchable balls under pressure. But it makes sense. I don't question it at all because a lot of his highlights last year, I felt like he was escaping a rush or getting hit as he throws. He famously has gone on the record saying numerous times his welcome to the NFL moment last year was his first game against the Jets when he came in and got smacked in the face by Quinn Williams on the Jets, the really talented defensive lineman, hit him as the ball was coming out. Kenny completes it to Freiermuth and gets up just fine. But the fact that that's an actual stat, it's great to see, very encouraging because it's kind of an advanced stat, an advanced analytic, but it does matter, especially in the state of which the offensive line in today's NFL can be. If you don't have like 3 elite dudes, your guy gets pressure in his face. So the fact that it's a skill Kenny has, and he's cool as a cucumber, and he can throw under pressure, it's a great skill to have.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And I mean, we talked a little bit. Yeah, and Ben came around on Kenny Pickett too. Don't forget, had him on the Channel 7 YouTube channel of his and his podcast, and he was saying, he caught some heat. I think I even did a show solo because I didn't have anything else to talk about, and it was kind of the hot topic of the moment a couple months ago. And talking about how he didn't like him at first. Of course he didn't. Like this is your replacement. And you still think like somewhere in your mind that maybe I still had it, or maybe things didn't end the way Ben probably would have liked to have won another ring. So there was probably I don't know, like I don't want to say necessarily jealousy, but there could be anything like that, some animosity, or just like took Troy Polamalu forever to come out of his shell. Like he was a complete recluse, like a hermit or whatever. Like he's like Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy to Star Wars, and you had to go find like Troy somewhere out in like this remote planet, like in hiding, in solitude. Definitely. So
it's the competitors in that. You don't get to the NFL or any pro league without having that kind of competitiveness in you. Nobody wants to see their adversary do better than them. You root for their success. You want them to do well, especially depending on how your exit from said team went. But to act surprised by Ben's comments, it was ludicrous. like, oh my God, I can't believe Big Ben of all people didn't want Kenny to do well at first. Like, where's the shocking part of that statement? And secondly, he owned up to it, told Kenny to his face, and admitted he was wrong. So if you can't see the good in that, you're trying to be upset, which is a common thing for people these days.
Yeah, it's contrarian. People like to be contrarian. Intentionally contrarian, and I don't try and do that. And some people be like, so we'll still get some of that. There's you got like the assholes that are out there that are just like, well, maybe he won't crash a motorcycle or bang chicks in the bathroom now that Kenny Pickett, that being a jab at younger Ben Roethlisberger. So now that Kenny's married, like, well, maybe he won't get into some trouble and he's more level-headed. But people tend to forget about that too when they put Ben on like such a. Maybe that's why Ben isn't on a higher pedestal too, because of younger Ben was kind of immature. He was an idiot, and that's just the way it is. And Kenny does it. Like I think Kenny's handled like everything. There is I almost like dropped an F-bomb here, but an F-ton. Or an F load or whatever you want to say of pressure on Kenny Pickett, and he's just like handling it like the cool as a cucumber thing. But there's still some people that think that all of this, like just you or I, like we'll stand for him just because he went to Pitt and he played at Pitt and he was more of like the local boy and the hometown hero, and he gets to keep that going. And it's like, well, why is that wrong for Kenny Pickett, but James Conner's jersey sold like hotcakes, and he was a backup for the first year. He was never getting on the field. Like, and I understand his feel good story is, beating cancer and like making it to the NFL and everything like that. But it's also two different like pressure cookers there too. Playing running back is a little bit different, especially when you're not playing in your first year versus like quarterback is, like you said, be all end all of everything. So, I guess that's about the most that I've got to say when it comes to little, no respect or whatever when it comes to Kenny Pickett. I do think he landed on his feet in probably the best situation he could have in the NFL, and you shouldn't hold it against him that he went to college and played in the same stadium as, college to pros or anything like that. That's all kind of immaterial, but it's also the reason why the Steelers were maybe willing to take a chance at 19 other positions, 31 other teams, because don't forget, like some of these teams, they really wanted Kenny Pickett. I think they could have traded some future picks or players or whatever and jumped back in a certain spot to go grab him.
I'm not even a Pitt fan. That whole,
I'm
like,
not either.
I know you're not. You're an Ohio State guy. So like people want to like throw that in, and then you mention you're not, and it falls on deaf ears. It's like, yeah, I root for Pitt when they're doing well because it's fun. Everybody does that. Like I root for the Maulers when they're doing well. Even if I'm not watching, I'm like, yeah, let's go Pitt.
Maulers.
Like it just I get filled with pride whenever the Pittsburgh team is doing well. But I didn't go to Pitt. I'm not a Pitt fan. It has nothing to do with my fandom for Kenny. It's because I think he's a good quarterback and has the potential to be a franchise quarterback. And there's going to be pushback on that, I think, until Kenny puts up a season where we're at least in the playoffs. Maybe the stats will kind of fall to the wayside. I was going to say he needs to like get past 25 touchdowns and 3,000 yards to really get people's respect. But it'll all become easier if he leads us to the playoffs. And I think he can do that based off of what he showed last year. And the people who know ball can see that and will admit that. I have friends, family, coworkers that when we drafted Kenny, there was concern there. There was a little bit of resistance to come out and say, okay, I think this kid's going to be the guy, or I think that was a good draft pick. And as the season went, as we got to see more of Kenny, almost all of those people got on board or agreed. Even myself wanting Malik Willis as my 1 and Kenny as my 2, when we picked him, I remember being like, I hope that was the right pick. It did not take long for me to get on board and become like, and get on the front lines here defending.
2 minutes.
Yeah, about 2 full minutes.
I remember draft night, dude.
Like, this guy's all in.
We can go back and watch that draft night. Yeah. I think the best, I don't want to necessarily comp Kenny Pickett to Josh Allen, but it's fair to look at Josh Allen's path, a Buffalo Bills team that was kind of, rebuilding, needing a quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. And you look at, his first pro season, Josh Allen, that is. And I mean, he played 11 games started, 12 games played. So Kenny played 13, 2,074 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. What is this guy ever going to be? He got sacked 28 times. Thought he was supposed to be mobile. He gets sacked even more. Like the next year, he's a full-time starter, but a little over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns to 9 picks. And it's like, well, 20-9. I mean, you're still in the positive column, and he's only completing 58.8% of his passes, only 52.8 as a rookie. And then you look at his next 3 seasons, and the guy is, like Pro Bowl, All-Pro type material, over 4,000 yards in each one, over 30 touchdowns in each of these seasons. So, but you go back to college, right? And where did Allen play? He was at Wyoming in the Mountain West or whatever. And you take a look at his statistics in college, and there's some people, this is what they hang on. Well, Kenny had 1 good year in college. Yeah, what did Josh Allen have here? You know what I mean? He had 3,200 yards the 1 year with 28 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. Still a lot of interceptions, right? About 2-1 there. That's really not going to cut it at the pro level. And then 16-6 the next season, only 1,812 yards, and he still goes in the first round, and he has a slower start in the NFL. And now look, there isn't anybody that would be like, no, I don't want that guy. You know what I mean?
No, I love the 1-year wonder argument from the few remaining Kenny haters, because that actually came up in the thread of the guy with the poll. Someone talking about how, why Howell's the better prospect, because they listed college stats, and they were like, I'd rather have Sam Howell than the 1-year wonder. And I said, yeah, the 1-year wonder argument almost makes sense until you remember, like, oh yeah, 6 months ago, Kenny Pickett was winning games in the NFL and showing he was good. So there is no 1-year wonder anymore. Like in college, sure, but it isn't like that had a ill effect on him in the NFL. We're past 1 year of success. We're moving on to year 3 here for Kenny Pickett with success. And he got the right mindset. He has the mindset of like a seasoned veteran. Maybe it's because when we drafted him, he was 30 years old, but his mind is not wired the same as like an immature Ben,
30 years
for
old.
instance, or a rookie who comes in and gets success and like wants to be hot shit. He's a hard worker. I think that's why this town, for the most part, loves him. He's very blue collar. He sticks his nose in the fan. He cares about his teammates. He leads through example and vocally. There's really nothing not to like, unless you're being purposefully contrarian.
Yeah, and we'll give you one more. This is where we'll close this off at. About 10 years ago, there was a guy who came out of college, had 2 really, 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 really good years, really, really like hyped up, right? 13 games played in each season, 3,706 yards with 26 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And then 4,114 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. And those are some numbers. You know what I mean? And it's not Patrick Mahomes because he light up some numbers like that.
Is that Johnny Manziel?
It is Johnny Manziel. Well done, my friend. Well done. Yeah, that's that really make you.
It's like you unlocked something in my brain. I was like, "That's my man, Money Manziel stats." I can tell.
Yeah, but that just goes for your statement about wanting the college stat. Do you really want the college stats like that? That one didn't turn out so well.
You helped me out too with the 10-year thing because I know he went in like 2014, right, or something like that. So you helped me out with the 10-year thing there. But yeah, that was the first name that came to mind. I was like, 2 years. I
got another one. It's more recent than that. 3,700 yards, 36-7 touchdown interception, then 39-65, 40-8, and then 46-27. 43 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So 83 touchdowns to 14 interceptions over a 2-year period with about, 8,000, 9,000 yards. It's one of your other favorite guys. I know.
When was this from?
This would have been, so he would have been drafted in 2018, same draft class as Josh Allen. Number one overall pick.
Oh, Baker. I was gonna say Baker or Josh Rosen were my guesses.
Yeah, it was Baker Mayfield. So, and I still I think he got kind of like a little bit of the shaft. I had a little more better hopes for him, but you never know. And they changed offensive coordinators on him, and it changed systems, coaches.
He might be starting now. He's only got to beat out Kyle Trask in Tampa Bay, and he might get to start this year. So maybe he'll do something. If not, I'm sure the Bucs will go quarterback in the draft next year.
I have no faith that that's going to work out there. I mean, even though I think he's not maybe completely washed, that's a team that's now got to rebuild because Tom Brady brought everyone from the retirement home over to help win that Super Bowl with what was young talent. And now that some of that young talent has left, you've got people that have retired and are gone completely out of the NFL, including Tom Brady. Obviously, that's why that spot's open. So, hey, my friend, we're up against it. Always good. We got an early one in. Might have another show later this week. We'll see if I can get Brian to come out of hibernation and do some good things and stuff. It is still the slow period here. Getting geared up. Can't wait for training camp. It's still a month away, though, man. This is just like slogging right here.
It's gone from a hamster on cocaine on a wheel, I feel since the draft to a total standstill, like one of those desert scenes with the tumbleweed going across the TV screen. Because there was a point where I was like, man, we're moving and grooving here, dude. OTAs, mini camp, and now it's just e-break.
Yeah, cue the theme to Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where it's the whistle. I can't even fully do it. I don't have that high pitch. That's exactly the part we're in. Some dangerous territory, but we'll try and keep it interesting for all yins out there. If you got some ideas or things you want us to talk about, this was just one that it was we had something else we were going to talk about, and then we're like, no, this is a little more juicy. We got to talk about Kenny, and a lot of it can be hypotheticals, but it sure beats talking about Nick Kwiatkowski, whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah, Bethel Park's finest. I played against him in high school, or my team did. Cool. Yeah, I was on the bench, but I played against him in high school.
Yeah, but that's still cool. What's that? I said that's still something to talk about, though.
Yeah, I was a junior at the time, funny thing, little anecdote. We had a guy at the time who was really good. He was like a safety and a receiver and a running back. He was like one of those athletes who was good at everything. And whenever we got on the field for Bethel Park, we saw him, Kwiatkowski, however you say his name, and we're like, wow, he's like a better version of you, man. So everybody was saying
that makes you feel good. Yeah, that makes you feel good. So, okay, well, why does Kenny Pickett get little or no respect from the media? They're just not believers like we are. So we'll see how that plays out in the near future. Thanks for watching or listening wherever you may be. Steelers Nation, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, my name's Joe. His name is Flash. Did you see the Flash movie, man? Are you into the DC universe? Did you see the Flash?
No, I heard
movie?
it sucked, which I liked. Though. I'm top Flash. I'm the best Flash. I heard it's flopping.
No, it's okay. If you're into the Michael Keaton Batman, you'll like it, I think. But
okay.
I think,
all right. Well, maybe I'll see it for him.
Don't listen to the comic book nerds. It's one of the better DC movies that have come out. I am not a comic book nerd. I am very casual. So somebody will be like, these are all the problems with this movie. It's like, I'm just there to be entertained, man.
I'm more like you.
Yeah.
I'm more like you.
Yeah. Well, anyways, folks, that little movie review. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.